the never-ending saga that is coming out of Louisville, Kentucky, a grand juror has now filed a motion to compel Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron to release the transcripts of the grand jury proceedings relating to the shooting of Breonna Taylor. Now, this comes just days after Vice News released footage from 45 body cameras from Louisville police who showed up to the scene after the disastrous raid and shooting that showed the three officers who were involved in the shooting violating established protocols that were supposed to keep cops involved in these kinds of incidents from having an opportunity to collaborate on a story, to cover up their actions, to keep them from contaminating or manipulating the scene, and to keep them from influencing or intimidating witnesses. Now, the video reveals that the Louisville Police Integrity Unit, or the PIU, didn't separate the three cops and didn't escort them each separately from the scene, that they stayed on the scene and even entered the apartment and even talked to witnesses after the shooting. What's worse is that it's been revealed that the ballistics report from the Kentucky State Police casts serious doubt on Attorney General Cameron's claim that it was definitely Kenneth Walker's gun that fired the shot that hit Officer Jonathan Mattingly in the thigh, and that friendly fire from the other two officers was ruled out because they all had different caliber guns. That's what he said. But the ballistics report does not definitively identify Walker's gun as the source of the bullet that hit Mattingly, because one of the cops also had the same caliber gun as Walker did. Now, Kenneth Walker, who, remember, legally owned his weapon and was inside his home with Breonna Taylor when they believed intruders were breaking in. Now, Attorney General Cameron previously said that he would not release any materials from the grand jury related to the investigation, but he's now said he will comply with the judge's ruling in favor of the anonymous grand juror's motion to do so. Cameron, though, is not happy about having to do it. The grand jury is meant to be a secretive body, he said in a statement emailed from his office to CNN. It's apparent that the public interest in this case isn't going to allow that to happen. As the special prosecutor, our team has an ethical obligation not to release the recording from the grand jury proceedings, and we stand by our belief that such a release could compromise the ongoing federal investigation and could have unintended consequences, such as poisoning the jury pool. Well, here's the thing. When secrets are kept from the grand jury that compromises its ability to fairly deliberate a matter, then maybe it's the grand jury pool that's already been poisoned. At least that's the argument that the grand juror who filed the motion seems to have, as that grand jury sought an attorney last week with concerns about Attorney General Cameron's claim during the press conference that the grand jury's decision that the law didn't permit Cameron to charge Mattingly and Cosgrove, the other two cops, and that the grand jury agreed with him. Now, the juror's attorney said that the person was upset that the jury was actually not given the option of charging the other officers and was only presented with charges for Hankinson, and that the AG misrepresented the jury's position in his press conference. That a grand jury has filed a motion to release transcripts of these secretive proceedings is unprecedented all by itself. But what's noted in the motion is even more revealing. The anonymous juror's motion states that the AG used the grand jury as a shield to deflect accountability and responsibility for the investigation's outcome, and that putting the grand jury in this position is unjust, as it makes them more accountable than the attorney general for making the decisions he did, all because the jurors answered the summons to serve. And if this whole episode doesn't make the problem plain for some people who didn't understand it before, that the problem with this entire so-called legal and justice system is that reform will not fix it, and why, I don't know what else will. Because, see, Attorney General Cameron was legally able to say that the grand jury agreed with his recommendations for who to charge and what to charge, because legally it is prosecutors that make the decision on what witnesses are called, which evidence is tendered, and what charges to recommend. The grand jury does not do that. And maybe this is something that we need to be very clear in understanding in this country, that grand juries exist to basically rubber stamp whatever prosecutors decide to put in front of them if those carefully chosen remnants of evidence are woven together in a compelling enough narrative. This is why people say that you can get a grand jury to indict a ham sandwich. But the fact that this is how the so-called justice system works, where all the evidence is actually not presented to grand juries because prosecutors just don't have to produce it, is at its core a completely biased and unjust system in which the police will never be held accountable by prosecutors who, by their very function, are allowed to decide that some facts regarding police-involved shootings and other incidents of violence and abuse just don't have to be divulged to the citizen body that's supposed to determine whether any wrongdoing needs to be answered for. This is the system as it exists right now and as it has always existed, not just in Louisville, but everywhere in the United States. So if you keep that in mind, as you factor in the ease with which the three cops were able to violate the internal protocols of the Louisville PD that are supposed to be in place to provide greater accountability for and trust in the police to hold themselves accountable, then I hope you understand now why our focus in this struggle needs to be, and honestly has always been, not on condemning individual people like Attorney General Daniel Cameron and even individual cops like Brett Hankinson, but in dismantling the unjust system that allows them to operate in the way that they do and always have. Because like Assata Shakur said, nobody in history has gotten their freedom by appealing to the moral sense of the people oppressing them. Now, I'm sure this topic is going to come up in tonight's debate between Joseph Biden and Donald Trump, but neither one of them is going to tell the truth about it. That's why I did. Keep this in mind. You need to keep this in mind as you watch them both evade the real issues, which just reveals that they're part of the same system that needs to be dismantled too. Follow Luqman Nation on patreon.com/LuqmanNation for lots of great content.